Soulful Sauna, Stories of Self-Mastery. Thank you for joining us. It is you, the viewer, that makes this podcast. Your host, Juliette Noske, and her guests are here to share stories of self-mastery, to inspire you and ignite the power of positive change on your own journey. Thank you for being with us. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soulful Sauna podcast. And today, my guest is Aideen Ni Riada. And Aideen helps creatives and women entrepreneurs discover strength in their own voice and purpose, using a blend of psychology, spirituality, singing, and mantra meditation so that they can create a happy and successful life. Her clients embody many results, including less procrastination and anxiety, improved stress management, and communication skills in business and family relationships. Her mission is to empower these incredible women to authentically share their business with those who truly need them. Welcome, Aideen.
Thank you so much, Juliette. It's a pleasure to be here and see your vision come into reality, and your podcast is born.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for all the support that you gave me in launching this. It took about a year, I think. I was, my first podcast was Who Am I? Who am I to launch a podcast? And it was a real journey of self-mastery, actually. So, yeah.
Well, I'm so proud of that because I have my own podcast, the Resonate podcast with Aideen, and it is a big commitment. It's a lot of work, but it's very, very rewarding. And I listened to just one of your episodes and I really enjoyed it. And you're bringing very interesting people to your listeners, and it's about connecting. And you're now the vehicle for great people to connect.
Yes, thank you. And I hope I got your name right. It reminded me of being in a school when I work with a group of young people, and they're from all different cultures, and some of the names I've never seen before. And then I'm trying to read their names. And even when you've practiced a few times, yeah. So I hope I got your name right.
Yes, my name is in the Gaelic, in Irish. And the ni part is the same as the o part in a word like O'Sullivan. The o means son of, and ni means daughter of. So I've chosen to use that version of my name despite its difficulties in being pronounced, because I love that that feeling of being connected to my ancestors as a daughter. And my last name, Riada, has the word re in it, which is a word that means king. So I'm not sure where we descended from kings, or like that we're like the butler to the king, or who knows. But it's nice because it's got those two aspects. It's got the daughter of somebody, a sovereign energy. And so yeah, I pronounce it's Ni Riada.
Ni Riada. Yes. And I love that, the story behind the name as well.
Yeah.
Do you ever look at that with your clients, the story behind their name, when you're working with their voice?
You know, I would work more with the vibration of the name and how much they own their own name. So some people do shorten a name, and I can sometimes feel into whether that's empowering energetically or disempowering. And sometimes I think, depending on our backgrounds and our family life and our work life, people have used our name or relate our name to a certain version of ourselves, or a certain version of who they think we are. And there's sometimes energetic work that I would do to break that connection, to reclaim your name. I might use mantra to reclaim someone's name. And sometimes when I'm doing mantras and I want to focus on a particular person or particular, if someone has a health issue, I will use their name, and I will use the letters of their name. So I will say my mantra focusing on, say, the J, of Juliette, and then the U, and then, you know, the L. And I would use that because I feel like our names they represent way more than just the word. And they're so unique. One person called Juliette versus another person called Juliette, completely different energy. So we imbibe our name with energy, and our past could sometimes imbibe our name with energy. And it's good to reclaim that, so that when we express our name, we say our name, that we feel we love it and that we feel empowered by it.
Yes. I actually do a process called the soul contract reading, where you take someone's birth name, all of their names, and whatever's written on their birth certificate, and then you use a process which comes from the Moses Code to calculate it into Hebrew letters and numbers, and then look at their soul's contract. So the idea is that before the soul came into the body, it had a specific vibration and energy and things it needed to learn and experience. And then, so through that, the name is chosen. And through that name, you can then look through and see why specific things have come into your pathway. And it was fascinating how the period when I was married was completely different from my birth name, because I'd changed my name, and the lessons that were around that time, when I look back on those years, you're like, oh my gosh, yes. Those were the experiences that had come to me, and they were in line with what that name spoke.
You mean your married name?
Yes, my married name.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you have layers of your birth name. Your birth name is like the cake, and then your married name would like be the layers on the cake, or the decorations, and they add a different layer of understanding to your experience in life and the things that you're learning on this lifetime. So
Ooh, that sounds amazing. I have a friend who was her birth name in Ireland, and I suppose a lot of Catholics do this. They might want to call their child a non-religious name, but you have to be named a religious name. So her name was Catherine Rachel Brown, and she was always called Rachel. And I think her family saw her a certain way. So when she was doing a lot of meditation, her meditation teacher told her to consider using Catherine. And I started using Catherine. I loved using Catherine. And then she moved back in with her mother, and now she's Rachel again. And I'm like, switching back and forth is difficult. But it was interesting how it was a different side and a different, our names do matter. And I know in some traditions, and some of the Indian traditions, they don't reveal the baby's name for a full month. And it's the first time it's ever spoken out loud, other than when the parents are choosing it, I'm guessing, because I'm sure they discuss it, but they whisper it into the child's ear. And in astrology, there's actually a syllable, a sound related to the time of our birth. And in India, they often choose the name based on that syllable from their birth being used in their name, which I think is amazing.
Yes, yeah. Wow. I've heard about the whispering into the ear, but I hadn't heard about the vibration of the sound when we're born. So yeah, that sounds fascinating. So maybe you can hear my cat. Can you hear my cat in the background? No,
No.
she's meowing because it's nearly dinner time. So tell me, as a someone you're in a warm country, you're warm there? It's quite warm there, isn't it?
No, right now it's cold. It's in
Oh, it
fact,
is.
it's freezing. So, but the house is warm. So I'm living in
Okay.
the US, which is the way people heat their houses in the US versus, like, I could be in a sauna right here in the house. I'll be like sweating, and but outside it's minus 14 degrees. So we've got snow, and then everything is completely laden down with snow. I don't know if I can move my camera and show you this. If anybody is listening on
Wow.
Spotify, you won't get to see it, but that is how the snow is outside.
Wow.
It's like a couple of feet deep. And so where I am in Michigan is northern Michigan, so it's like it's a few hours to get to Canada, but it's kind of more that kind of climate. So
Right.
nice and hot in the summer, beautiful summers, very long winter. So we had our first snow on the 31st of October, and then we had no snow and a beautiful mild Christmas. And just in the last few weeks, we've had really bad snowstorms, and we could have snowstorms up until, on and off up until the end of May. So we miss spring. That's my least favorite part of being here is I miss spring because I'm Irish. Spring starts in January in Ireland. We have snowdrops at the end of January, and I miss that phase of nature in Ireland. But we get the snow. That's the beauty of that as well, compensates a little.
Yeah. And do you have saunas out there?
We have great saunas in the gym. Yes, of course. I know you're passionate about your saunas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although
And-
hot tub is probably my favorite place to sit at the moment.
yeah. In the gym?
Mhm. At the gym, yeah.
At the gym. Have you ever experienced a hot tub outside and then you dive into the snow?
No, but that sounds amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah. In
Yeah.
the north of Japan, so in a place called an island, the northern island called Hokkaido, they have the onsens, the hot springs, and some of them are outside. And so basically you come out of the hot bath and then you dive into the snow.
Well, it's funny. I actually have a connection with Japan because I worked for Japan Airlines for 5 years.
Oh.
And we had a training phase in Tokyo in one of these dormitories, right? So it was like the men were on one side, the women are the other, and we had the female onsen. So it had an onsen in the building, and an onsen is very different to a normal hot tub because it's more like a bath, like a hot bath. Because what you do is because it's a group thing and you're in with everybody else, you have to clean yourself really well and scrub your body down. And then when you're clean, you get into the onsen to soak up the minerals and everything in the water and, to relax and everything. So I was coming from Ireland where, nakedness is probably not the most, I remember being in Germany and seeing people get changed at the gym, and they would be showing all their skin and getting almost completely naked. And I was shocked because I always got undressed in my own bedroom under my nightie in case my sister might see me. I'm sure a lot of people listening can identify. But when I went to the onsen, everyone was like, oh, some of the British girls who were with us, they were literally like opening up the front of their dressing gowns and, showing me everything to shock me because I was being so modest. But anyway, I've gotten over that. Yeah. So the onsen idea is absolutely beautiful, and I would love to go to Hokkaido. It's actually one of my dreams. Have you ever read the book Hokkaido Highway Blues?
No.
You
What's it
would.
about?
Oh, it's a beautiful book. It's a travel book by a teacher from England that went to Japan on the jet ski, and he decides to hitchhike from Okinawa all the way up to Hokkaido following the cherry blossom seasons. So whenever the cherry blossom was going to be completely in bloom, he wanted to be in the different places. And back then, I mean, probably even still now, hitchhiking was not done in that country. So it's a very, very nice book for anyone who is interested in Japan.
I've actually lived some of his stories. So I was on the JET program,
Wow.
Japanese exchange teaching program. Yep, I was on the southern of the four main islands, Kyushu, and we actually, with my now ex-husband, we actually hitchhiked from Tokyo down to Kyushu, and it took us 3 days, and I think there were about 10 car rides, and everyone was so kind, so generous. And, they'd be walking in the other direction and they'd turn around and guide you to where you wanted to go. Or one man was only going to the end of Honshu, which is where Tokyo is on that island, but he crossed over the bridge to Kyushu and took us all the way to a place to stay and lent us his phone to call them in advance. And people are just so kind and generous there.
Yeah, people in Japan are beautiful, beautiful people.
Yeah.
So you will know, you will enjoy that book then. It'll be
Yes.
like a blast from the past.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds fantastic.
I was sad when the book ended. You know, when you have a book that you just want, I want it to keep going.
Yeah. 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 I would imagine it's a very interesting story.
Yeah.
And Hokkaido, no, sorry, Okinawa, he would have had to get a boat or something, wouldn't he?
I
Do you
think so.
know, do
Yeah.
you know if the boat was a hitch as well, or if that was a ferry?
It was probably a ferry. I actually don't remember. It's actually quite a long time ago that I read it. So I
Mm,
don't remember any of the exact details, as I probably should reread it.
yeah.
I recommend it to people all the time because I
Yeah.
just loved it so much.
Yeah. Fantastic. We'll check that out. And what is a crazy but fun fact about you?
Now, I know you even asked me to prepare a crazy and fun fact, and I have completely forgotten what is my crazy and fun fact. Um,
I think you mentioned something about you and your husband.
yes, actually, that is a story in itself. So my crazy fun fact that you've reminded me, thank you, is is that my husband and I met and had a brief relationship and then broke up for 10 full years before finding each other again. And we met in Dublin in Ireland, and I thought that was it. Like, I went to LA where he was living at the time, and I was fully hoping for a proposal, and he just wasn't ready. And he didn't want to do a long distance relationship. I would have done a long distance relationship. No, anyway, heartbroken. I moved back to Ireland because I didn't want to be living in LA with someone that wasn't sure. So about 10 years later, I get a Facebook message. My friend is visiting Dublin. You should go meet him. I lived like nearly 2.5, 3 hours from Dublin. And I was like, I'm not traveling all the way to Dublin to meet some, friend. But it got our conversation going. And he said, are you seeing anyone? And I said, well, unrequited love is happening. He's like, well, you deserve to be with someone amazing, Aideen. And if we were in the same country, we would be together. I went, what? Would we? So the funny thing was, because I had felt so certain about him 10 years earlier, this time I was like, okay, I might need more reassurance that this is something I should invest time in. So I went to my meditation teacher in Ireland, Clodagh, who is also a Vedic astrologer. She does Indian style astrology. And I said, will you look at our charts? So I gave her the charts, and she came back to me and she said, Aideen, you'll encourage each other in good habits. That was all she said. You'll encourage each other in good habits. And I said, well, good habits are the basis for a good life. So off I went. I decided I would go to LA. This time, instead of staying 2 weeks in LA, 10 years later, learned my lesson. I stayed the habit forming 3 weeks. And by, about 2 or 3 weeks in, he sat me down and said that he wanted us to be together. And that he was wanting to come to Ireland, and he came and lived in Ireland for 3 years. And now we're back in the US because his family situation. So it's been an adventure. So he definitely brings out the adventure in me, because I can be a creature of habit and I can retreat when things don't go well. I'd like to retreat, and my family have been where I've retreated to, and it's hard for me not to be closer to them, but I'm excited about all the adventures we're going to have in the future too.
Mm. Wow, that sounds fantastic. And 10 years.
10 years gap. Yep. So we met in
Is it?
2008
Yeah.
and January, and he reconnected with
Mm.
me just towards the end of 2017. And I went to LA for the 3 weeks at Christmas 2017. So it was almost exactly 10 years. So yeah. So they say things run in like a 9-year cycle or something. So as soon as
Yeah.
it came back around again, we were like, okay, off we go again. And I think it's never too late. Like, we were both in our mid-40s getting married, and we had neither of us been married before that. And so it does take a bit of, they call it neuroplasticity, you know, where you're willing to make changes, you're willing to compromise, your brain is willing to compromise. It takes a little bit of that to be in a relationship with someone when we get a little older, because we do get a little stuck in our ways, and we like things when we're on our own a lot. We can get into like, why would I change that now for them? But I think we were just so grateful to find each other again that we were like, okay, let's go to Ireland, and let's go to America, and let's not complain about the mobile phone charging beside the bed, and let's, you know, all the little things, you know, we complain about so many little things in relationships, but you know, when you're really delighted and happy to be with someone and you choose them and they choose you, and you do that continually day by day, that's the full blessing.
Definitely some self-mastery there.
I think we needed the 10 years to gain that. I joke that we had a lot of growing up to do.
Did you notice that those 10 years had gone by, or was it like you'd just come back together and it was
it was like, it was weird, because even the first time we met, I remember being at work for the day, and when he came to meet me after work, I felt like eons had gone by. I was like, who is this person? What are they doing here? I know them, but it's like time is kind of more flexible than sometimes we realize. But the first 2 or 3 years after we broke up, I was literally depressed, and I think he was as well, because we both knew we were missing out on something, but we just weren't able to hold on to it at that time. And then I just forgot about him. And I remember about 2 or 3 years before we got back together, I did a reading with a psychic, and she was like, there's someone there. There's someone in the background. And I was like, there's no one. What are you talking about? I had completely forgotten about him by then. So yeah, anybody listening who's single, you never know who's on the horizon from your past. Or my cousin actually was single for 15 years and just recently met someone she knew from primary school, you know, and that's kind of helped her to get back in the game. So there's so many great people. Like, there's great people everywhere. There's someone sometimes looking for someone just like us.
Yeah. Do you think it runs in your family then?
To what?
To meet people from the past?
I don't know. I don't think so. My mother did move to Ireland to marry my dad she came from America to marry my dad. So I think there's probably does run in the family a spirit of adventure and a spirit of transformation. Like, I feel like when a couple meets from across the waters and they get together, they're kind of challenging the preconceived idea of what their life should be based on where they're from. So I think my parents both broke kind of what they were expected to do by taking the move to get together. And they didn't stay together their whole lives. They stayed together for about 20 years. And I actually avoided, that was one of the reasons I was uncertain about Mike, because I had seen how long, those cross-cultural relationships can be more difficult. But I grew up enough to know that I'm living my own life and I'm not the same as them. And I think getting together with someone that in your 40s versus in your 20s is a very big difference.
Yes. Yeah.
That self-mastery part, definitely, it gets drummed into you, whether you like it or not. You learn a few lessons along the way.
They say that you learn a lot more through relationship with others, because, when you're sat on your own, whether, whatever relationship that is, because when you're on your own, there you are doing your own thing, talking to yourself and but when you come into relationship with someone else, that's when you get the reflections of those things within yourself. So my mum came to stay with me for 2 weeks over Christmas, and we both live alone. And so, yeah, we have our own ways of doing things, our own habits, our own nature. And so there's a lot to learn and grow in that process of coming together and living together for 2 weeks. And I'm very lucky in that my mum is also on the journey of personal development, learning and willing to be open and communicate and grow. And so if there are any challenges, then we're able to pause and come back and speak about them and learn from what's just happened and let go of things, not hold on to things, and be in silence for 2 days, for example. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I think it's very powerful being in relationship with whomever that is.
Yeah, even a flatmate can be transformative. I remember one of my flatmates, Caroline, she said to me one day, Aideen, that hurt my feelings. And I was shocked, like so shocked, because in my family, it was more like the slam the door, ignore you for 2 days, reaction. And that was the first time I realized that it could be safe to express your feelings to someone, because she did it so beautifully. And it just made me take pause, reconsider what I would said, and want to understand where she was coming from. And I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes retreating might feel safer, but actually we can gain so much by being together, and we learn about ourselves. My husband one day said to me, we were in a restaurant, and I have a thing about drinking my cup of tea that it's hot, right? I like my tea to be hot. So I'll go back and I'll refill the kettle and I'll boil it. Anyway, it's a little thing, right? So I was in the restaurant and my tea came to me cold. And my husband said, Aideen, when you spoke to that waitress, you shocked her, right? Because my annoyance was so obvious from my tone of voice when I went, my tea is cold, right? Because it was just, that was how I felt on the inside. Now, he had to tell me more than once that I do this, right? When I'm annoyed in a restaurant. And I had to go away and think about it. And I went, okay, this is not right. And I made a prayer. I just said, dear God, or whatever, just in every situation, help my voice to be kind, even when I'm annoyed, even when I get cold tea, even when they bring me the wrong order, even all of these things. And I said it 3 times. And then about a week or two later, I was in a restaurant and I literally got given something I didn't really want. And I didn't even mention it. I just said, okay, I'll have this. I couldn't believe it. Like, I thought, well, I didn't know how that prayer would be answered, but the prayer was answered by me physically and mentally feeling different in that situation. And my voice still is a little kinder as a result. So yeah, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
We need people to tell us those things, because we feel justified sometimes to be annoyed. Especially I was feeling justified in a professional setting when I felt someone should serve me in a certain way. And I worked for Japan Airlines. So they serve people in a certain way. The customer is like honored, deeply honored. So that was the training I had, and I just can't apply that standard everywhere I go, especially where I live now, because it's a different culture and it's a different place.
Yeah. And it's that acceptance and understanding as well, isn't it? And not it's not that you have to necessarily accept bad service, but it's that you're accepting that maybe the tea might come cold and that's going to be okay. Or maybe the order was wrong and they're human and they made a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then your whole
Sometimes it doesn't matter, but sometimes you do care. But if I do care now, I can say it in a kinder way.
yeah.
And I don't feel it in my body. I like when people treat me well. I like to get the right order, but I don't feel it in my body as a terrible thing anymore. So that's a blessing for me, for my nervous system even.
Yes. Yeah. And that's it, isn't it? Often the triggers that we have where people trigger us to feel angry or upset or unloved, those triggers are within us. So it's for us to be responsible to work with those triggers so that then when those situations happen, like you say, in our body, we we don't have that trigger. We don't feel that anymore. It doesn't trigger that within us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite a powerful thing. When I work with clients, that's quite a powerful thing for them to learn and to realize, like you did, where it's like you have that experience and it's like, oh, I didn't have that experience. I didn't have that feeling. And like you say, then your nervous system isn't impacted in that way as well. So really, that's an expression of the mind-body connection.
Completely. I mean, and sometimes we don't realize the potential for something different. I've been working with a client who's in a workplace scenario where they were being targeted in some way. And I suggested that she bring softness into the situation and that there might be softness available within her for the situation and she loved this idea because up until that point, she had decided I needed to take this to, to employee court, and I have a lawyer now. And every time she went into the workplace, she was on warrior mode. She didn't need to be, because most of the time it was fine. It was just, certain moments and certain times of the, certain people. So she found that really useful to start to imagine that softness might be possible. And we don't need to fight negative situations. Sometimes the softer way, the maneuvering or the kindness can transform what's happening.
Yeah. And as we change, so does, like you say, that situation. Be the change that you want to see in the world, as Gandhi said.
Oh, yes. I love that. Yeah. I mean, Gandhi is one of my, heroes. So they call him Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma means high soul. So some people feel they access that perspective, that higher perspective. Some people have to learn to find that higher perspective, and some are just going to struggle to find that higher perspective for a little longer than others. But that higher perspective is where magic can happen. Like, we have no idea how quickly things can turn around for situations of unrest. And there's a lot going on in the world that needs that right now. And I keep asking Gandhi's energy to help anybody around the world that needs that belief in transformation in peaceful way.
Yes. And higher perspective doesn't necessarily mean someone elevated or someone better than. It's more of a perspective that just takes everything into consideration and sees it from a level of love, I guess.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes you could say a deeper perspective.
Yeah.
Sometimes I use higher and deeper interchangeably,
Yeah.
because yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think there's anything wrong with the word higher. It's just that sometimes when we hear that, it's like when we're speaking about, for example, dimensions is another one, moving to another dimension. Well, I've heard someone speaking about the different dimensions. So we're in 3D, which is more material, concrete, heavy, moving to 5D, which is more of a higher vibration. And energetically, it's lighter and it's brighter. And myself as well, I used to always think as if of us moving to it, literally physically. And then I heard someone speak the other day saying about how rather than thinking of it as a moving to, it's more a shift in perspective, which brings you into that. So you're still in the same place, but you're in the fifth dimension because of that shift in perspective. And it's like when you're on your self-mastery journey, and for example, I learned about my jealousy and released it and learned to overcome it and work through it. And through that, I got a different perspective, and therefore my whole experience of relationships shifted. So I was still in the same life, the same body, the same relationships, but my whole experience changed because of that shift in perspective.
I love that. I've been thinking about this from someone was asking me about mentorship, and I was thinking about how sometimes we need help. And then I was thinking about glasses, because I didn't need to wear glasses until the last few years. And I have astigmatism, which means that I can still see things, but I will struggle and I will strain my eyes, and I will get very tired eyes, or I could get headaches. And sometimes we can see what's there. We can see maybe the fifth dimension or whatever it might be. We can see deeper, but we're struggling to do that. And so it's okay to get help in those situations. So if we can imagine that maybe the dimensions are just like, what pair of glasses have you chosen to wear that day? Are you looking through, a struggle? Are you looking through something that helps you focus your vision so that you can see more detail or see a wider perspective? So we're always it's like our vision is, and our perspective is usually directed at what we think is most important. And for a lot of us, it's, well, what's most important is my job, or what's most important is my children. But then we need to see what else is important. We need to understand that your self-care is also important with your job, and that your husband is as important as your children, in certain situations that might be relevant. But it's about widening that scope. And sometimes we need to zone right in, but we need to also be able to zone back out again.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you studied Gandhi a lot then?
Actually, no, but what happened was I do mantra meditation. So I run these classes where it's not really like a kirtan, but if you've done a kirtan, it's sort of something like that. So we'll use similar mantras, but it's I would be singing a mantra, and if we're on Zoom or something, you're singing yourself as well. And I do these meditations, and I go quite deep. And we're talking about peacemakers. So I said, okay, I'm going to open up a room, and I energetically in my head, right, which is like whether I opened up a room, but in my head, I had opened up a room, and I said, I'm inviting all the divine peacemakers into the room. And I felt the presence of Mahatma Gandhi. And I was like, oh my God, I felt like I was in a room with Mahatma Gandhi. Like it was like the aura, when the aura of someone, someone walks into the room and you feel them there.
Yes.
And I felt such a great blessing, because this might be only in my head if you don't believe in this type of thing, but to me it felt very real, and it felt like I'd met him. So I've seen the movie or whatever, but that was the most significant. And I felt like I could go up and shake his hand, and then I could say, hey, you probably know all about this, but I would love for peace to come to, say, the situation Israel and Gaza. And I invited the souls of all the people there that want peace into that room as well. And basically we had peace party. So that sounds kind of odd, but that to me that's my deepest connection to Mahatma Gandhi, was through that visual, that vision, and that energetic connection.
Yeah. Well, for me personally, it doesn't sound weird. It sounds absolutely fantastic, and I wish I was at the party.
You'd have to join sometime.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds wonderful. I'm sure that would be a great thing to do at one of my women's gatherings as well, my women's circles in meditation. Sometimes I do them in person and online. And yeah, it sounds wonderful. And, like you say, much needed in the world today. And I truly resonate with the presence of Gandhi. I've traveled in India a few times, and I've watched the video and, like you say, the movie, and I have seen the statues of him, and I still have the images strongly in my head, and I've got a little book that he speaks about Jesus in it as well, and speaks about the similarities between yoga and Jesus. And in fact, some people say the lost years of Jesus Christ were spent in India.
Yes, I would not be surprised for a second.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I really resonate with his energy, and also Mother Teresa, and the love that she had as well. And yeah.
I'm pretty sure Mother Teresa was at that party, and St. Francis, and Martin Luther King, and um, you know, when we need perspective, we need to be able to connect with something that has that perspective. And that's what meditation and connecting to mantras and all of that can do. It's like, I see a mantra as like a friend. So, and I recently started thinking about it as an aura thing. So like inviting the aura of Mahatma Gandhi in, or inviting the aura of, say, the goddess Lakshmi. She's the goddess of abundance. I always associate Lakshmi with a party where there's so much food that you can't finish it. Because I've been at parties like that. And
Yeah.
so it's like who you rub shoulders with. Do you know what I mean? And you can do that, I think. And that's why working with people and, doing those kinds of circles and, getting people together and inviting them to see that perspective is very, very valuable.
Yeah, yeah. And scientists say, everything is energy. And we say the vibe, isn't it? We get a good vibe from someone or a place, and recreating or bringing in or calling in that vibration, for me, it is a very real thing. And yeah, it has a very strong impact, I think, on the people involved. Do you do this online, your peace
Yeah.
party?
Yes, I do mantra classes twice a week.
Yeah.
But I think even somebody isn't into this type of spirituality or whatever, sometimes there are people that in our lives that have passed, like a grandparent, and that might be that higher perspective person for you, you
Mm,
know. And it's okay when you think someone's name, and you're talking about the name and the vibration of a name, when you think their name in your head or even say it out loud, that can actually bring in that person, whoever you feel you connect with,
yeah.
because it's different for everyone. It is like some people will really connect with one member of their family, and then someone else will be like my grandmother, my mother's mother. Everybody loved her so much, and I didn't really get a lot of time. I never really spent much time with her. I think I sat down with her once with the photo album, and I asked her one question, which happens to be about my eyes. But I was like, I have to go get my eyes tested. This is me in my my 40s going, I don't want to have to do it. She's like, look after your eyes, go get the eye test. So she's given me advice, and I've sat down with her, and but because it was so minimal, my contact, she's not the first person that I would be thinking, oh, I need to kind of, if only my granny's energy was with me. That granny wouldn't be the one that would come to mind as quick as my granny in Ireland, who watched me play skipping rope in her kitchen, and who put the stickers from the Cocoa Pops box on her kitchen cupboards, on the outside of her kitchen cupboards, and that she hung the garland of conkers. They're like acorns that I made, a little necklace, and she hung it on her dresser, and it was there when she passed away when I was only 13, and I was and so there's like those memories have created a very strong bond between me and my grandmother, and I feel that she is around, and her energy is very reassuring and kind of keep going, and you've got this, and you're loved, and that's sometimes all we need to remember.
Yeah, I love that. And such beautiful memories as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had that with my grandma, where I can truly feel her presence, and I see her, and yeah, she came in the form of a grasshopper, which sounds really weird. But I was out walking with my mum, and we were speaking about her, and then we saw this grasshopper, and I was like, that's grandma's energy. And then not only that, there was another confirmation, which later I was speaking to my sister, and I told her the story, and she was like, no way. She said, last night I was in my flat, which is like second floor up. We were watching TV, and then we looked to the left of the TV, and there on the wall was this massive grasshopper. And I was like, how did that get in the house on the second floor? and she thought it was grandma's energy. And so we'd both had these random different experiences, and she was like, oh my gosh, that's so true.
Isn't
So
it beautiful? Because
yeah,
I think they do want to contact us.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was reading a fantastic book recently by Sonia Choquette. Do you follow her at all?
Oh, she's wonderful. Yes.
So she's a beautiful book called Ask Your Guides. So if anybody's listening and wants to connect with some of that energy, and even, grandparent energy, she talks about your guides and how to connect with them, and how to start that process of feeling someone's spirit even, and that part, like she would talk about, that your spirit has certain qualities, and that there's an energy, and you can give your spirit a name that's different to your own kind of persona name. So it's a beautiful book, and I would definitely recommend it if someone is on that journey and wants to just find out a little more.
Yes, that sounds wonderful. I've seen some of her videos actually about connecting with your guides,
Mm.
and it's something that my mum has always been into. So it's definitely been there in my life, speaking with your guides and spiritual mentors.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. And I feel like I run my own little business, and I'm trying to apply some of that guidance to my business, because sometimes I think we get into a certain realm of life, like for it's business, it's like numbers, and there's an anxiety that builds up, and then I feel like I have to do things a certain way because that's how things are done, what I perceive in business. So I want to bring more of that spirituality into my business, and I'm telling the whole world now. So and that's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, so you were mentioning earlier that you're having a transformational experience. So kind of, don't know if it's caterpillar to butterfly, but there's a definite transformation happening within your business. So quite a while back when we first connected through Cat Diva, I believe,
Yes.
and we were on her business course. And then we connected because I reached out to you regarding the podcast. And at that point, you were still focused mainly with singers, yourself being as an amazing singer as well. And I love your songs and the videos as well that go along with them. And
Thank you.
now your business is transforming. So would you like to share a little bit about maybe how and why and what that journey is like for you at the moment?
Yeah, it's been interesting because I found that because doing singing was a way for me to build my confidence. And when we're doing something we're comfortable doing, your confidence can be good. But then when you want to change something, or you want to do a different version of your business, or you want to attract a different type of client, suddenly the confidence goes. So it's about finding your voice again, finding a way to express a new identity in yourself, or a new wisdom that you may have started to understand, because we are all evolving. We're not the same people we were 10 years ago. None of us are exactly the same person as we were 10 years ago. But sometimes we retain that identity from 10 years ago because our families and our friends tend to keep they see us in a certain way. And I still get told, oh, Aideen, you'll always say the wrong thing, or blurt something or whatever. And so I'm known for that, I suppose, in my family. And I don't do that. Like, it might be very rare now. It could be once every 2 or 3 years now, versus it would have been once a week before when I was a child. But I see the changes in me, and I want to start expressing that. I want to start moving into that. So what happened was, I had people coming to me for some of the singing stuff, and I was really enjoying it. But behind that, I had started mantra meditation in 2011, and my practice of mantra, which is a form of voice meditation, because I'm singing out loud, but I'm singing kind of about connecting, rubbing shoulders with the right energy. And for me, that was what my grounding was for my business. That helped me feel secure enough to start confidence in singing, to start promoting classes, to start doing workshops. And I was doing that the whole way along. And then when COVID hit, I was encouraged by one of my teachers to do an online class. And I started teaching an online class twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I've done it consistently since 2020 now. So that's, going to be 4 years now towards the middle of this year. And because I was doing it so often and I was building this trust in my own ability, I was getting intuitive hits. Like I would see some things and I would understand things. I would say something to someone that was a bit left of field, but it would make sense to them. And I would have a singing client and they'd come to me with something that was blocking their singing. So they couldn't really sing because, something's going on at home or this is going on at work. And I'd say, I think one of the best things we could do for that is mantra. And they'd be like, well, let's try it, I suppose. And I basically started blending the singing into these mantras. Now, in singing lessons, we'd often talk about what's blocking your voice. It's almost like a therapy sometimes. But this was bringing it into the spiritual realm, and it was only with some clients. But these were the clients that I wanted to work with. I didn't want to just attract more singers that just wanted to sing well. So over time, my business was under the surface changing. Like my clients were different, but my website didn't say any of that. Externally, I wasn't letting on. And I wasn't even promoting my mantra classes. Like I think I've promoted 2 courses. Like I've been doing it for 3.5 years. So in a few months ago, I started changing my website. And here's an interesting thing. I changed my website and I put mantra in there. And a few hours later, my dad had texted me about something. And I had a thought in my head, what would my dad think of this? And my second thought was, I don't mind what he thinks. And that made me realize that up until that point, I was probably making everything dad approval ready, Now I was like taking that off and saying, it doesn't matter. And that was big. And I think there's probably areas where I do have that internal need for approval. I'm wanting to work through that more and allow this blossoming within me of who I am and what I am, and not need to have anybody else understand it. Because I think that there are people that want what I have, even if it might not be my brother or my friend from secondary school. But there are people who would be interested in what I'm doing. And I truly believe that someone is who doesn't know me yet is looking for what I do. And that's what I keep reminding myself to keep me focused on this transformation.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny how we can present one thing and then within there's a different version of us, or maybe there's many. I just spoke to someone who wrote a novel, and she says how one of the characters in the book is partly representing part of her, and there's another character that represents actually sometimes a bit more a different part of her. And I think we do have these different personas, don't we, that we maybe share more in different situations, and not necessarily always a problem, and unless we're kind of hiding them, I guess, or pushing them down because of a fear of how they might be seen. If we're repressing them in any way and not allowing them to shine out, then yeah, it can, like with myself and not being able to release a particular episode of my podcast, because then I was feeling, is this in line with the message that I want to give? But that awareness didn't come at first. There was a resistance, which could have seemed like procrastination had I not delved deeper and looked at why there was this resistance there.
Yeah, we need to keep asking ourselves those kinds of questions. We need to ask ourselves why we're reacting a certain way. And so for me, I would be watching Sister Act on the TV and I would weep. like cry like a baby. Someone like Barbara Streisand would be doing a concert on TV, and I'd be like, oh, I'm like, this is so amazing. And I didn't it took me a long time to step into my identity as a singer. I wanted to study singing, which I did eventually, and I wanted to be performing. But I do perform now on and off, and I have been releasing singles and things like that. But one of the biggest changes was when I started teaching singing, and I provided that opportunity for others. And that became a very fulfilling thing for me to do. And it took some of the pressure of me wanting to feel seen away. And then it was more like, my mission now is to help others find their voice. And so it did start with people finding their voice purely as, an amateur hobby singer. And now it's like, I'm expanding that now. It's already expanded, because of course in me setting up my business, that was part of my voice as well. And in me, having this amazing relationship with my husband, that was a way of me finding my voice. And me moving to the US and not really wanting to, because I felt safer with my family, that was a way of me finding my voice. And every single time we do something different and we evolve it, we do get that, clenchy feeling of, is it safe, or, is this the right thing? And we doubt ourselves, and our confidence can dip for a bit. But if we're still feeling that draw, that pull towards what's next, it's worth, I would say, in business, we talk about market research. Test the thing, like just put out one feeler, talk to one person, and take some small steps in the direction that you think you might like to go. Because a lot of the time people think of it's an all or nothing. I'm deciding. Like the first 3 years I was in America, I was just visiting in my head. It took me because I wasn't ready to fully embody that. So we can take our time, along that journey. But when we feel something that we don't understand, we can do some self-inquiry, but we can also, get some help and, speak to someone like yourself or myself, and do some investigations and go on an adventure, see who you're becoming.
Yeah. So was the crying for Barbara Streisand your desire to want to let your voice be free and be heard?
Yeah.
Yeah. And my mum said something to me the other day. She said, oh, what was it? It's oh yes, go to the edge. Go to the edge. Go to the edge. And then step off, and it's like taking that leap of faith, and then you find out you can fly. And it's that, when I was trying to launch this podcast, it was like, go to the edge, and I was like, well, can I do it? But when my mum said that to me the other night, it was so beautiful, and I was like, yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, it is, because our comfort zone is safe, but we don't change, within the comfort zone. We change at the edge of the comfort zone, where you feel a bit uncomfortable, and feeling uncomfortable is a good thing.
Yes. Yeah. When I did my bungee jump, that's what happened. And I stood there and I was like, can we wait a minute, please? And then the guy gently pulled my arms across and off I fell. And that first moment was so terrifying. I was like, my mouth was wide open. There was no sound coming out. And then I remember I hit the bottom, not hit the bottom, I went to the end of the rope.
Yeah.
The end of the line of the rope, and bounced up again. And then all of a sudden the sound was allowed to come out, and it was just this big and then I bounced a few times, and then you come down, they lay on the ground, and then I was like, let's do it again, and it is when you've done something, all of a sudden there's that huge buzz within you to continue and keep the momentum up. But like you say, sometimes when we've been doing something for so long, we get them back into our comfort zone again. And so eventually we're going to reach that point where we need to once again take that leap of faith and maybe move through that uncomfortableness that we have.
Sometimes people expect or wish for life to be easier.
Yeah.
But when we look at nature, and you are connected so deeply with nature, when we see a caterpillar become a butterfly, there is a struggle. When a baby is born, they get pushed, right? And there is a little bit of like restriction before liberation. And it's good to recognize that in nature, that, you know, there's periods of time where nothing is happening. In winter, like why as humans do we expect there always to be forward motion, that we're always succeeding? It's not natural for that to happen. It's natural for us to have a midlife crisis and take a break for 6 months, or, you know, for things to fail or for things to feel difficult. If we understood that that was natural and that's needed and that's okay, then maybe we can get through those things without as much resistance internally.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And it is important to continue to look at nature. There is an intelligence there, and within our own bodies, if we follow the natural cycles and the calling of our own bodies, there is a wisdom there and an intelligence that is way beyond what we can try and make happen. And I remember being in a circle it was a women's workshop in Spain, and everyone sat around the circle. It was for women only, and the lady started talking and sharing her workshop, and then she asked for all of the women on one side to put their hand up if they were menstruating, and they all put their hand up. The next, you know, people who just stopped. The next side, people who had were just ovulating, and everyone put their hand up. And then the next, you know, people who just finished ovulating, and everyone had, you know, sat down in that position in the workshop. And she was like, this is a lesson for you to realize that underneath your unknowing is a deep knowing, and this wisdom and this intelligence is within you. It's within nature, within your nature. If you only take away the layers, it's there. And we know deep within, we do know. And so as we uncover the the layers, we become more in touch with our nature and with the natural cycles. And like you say, with the cycle of the woman as she goes through the month, there is a cycle and a time that's like winter, where you want to hibernate and you want to just, you know, sit on your own and be more quiet. And then there's another time of the month where you want to be out there and more creative, and you have all these ideas. And yeah, so yeah, we have that intelligence within us, and if we just look to nature, that will really help us really connect on a deeper level.
Definitely. Yes.
So Nadine, I was going to say, Aideen, do you have a piece of wisdom that you would like to share with our listeners to leave them with today?
Well, seems like quite a lot was already said. My mission is to encourage people to value themselves. When we undervalue ourselves, we don't take any steps towards what we'd like. We don't believe anything is possible. We have to find our own qualities that are worth celebrating. And for some of us, a family member or a friend may be telling you that you have that quality, but you might be resisting noticing or really feeling it. If someone gives you a compliment and says you're kind or you're sweet, please try to just say, thank you. I'll take that on. Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, when we can appreciate whatever our good sides are, that grows. It's like, you know, that's the flower in the garden. keep watering all these good qualities and we blossom. So yes, your voice has value. You're needed. No one else is in your shoes. No one else can replace you. Your wisdom, your knowledge, your experiences and who you are have made you so unique. And people need to experience that. Sometimes they want to hear from you. Sometimes they just want to be in your presence. Sometimes they just want to see the creations that you're going to create. But please keep doing that. Keep being you and keep following your bliss, what you enjoy. And if you're going through a phase of restriction or something uncomfortable, please know that it's natural and you can come through it, and it could be the greatest transformation of your life.
Thank you so much. Yes. And when I work with the young people in schools, we really encourage them to listen to the words of others and practice embodying what they've shared. Because like you say, those reflective words of someone else, they sometimes, when we find it hard to see those gems within ourselves, they really help us to see, because often others know us perhaps better than ourselves, or perhaps better than we're willing to really see ourselves. So yeah, thank you very much, Aideen, and I wish you well with the transformation of your business.
Thank you so much, Juliette, and congratulations on your podcast. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you to Matt and Ken at Thermalux UK for offering their saunas as a space for me to record my podcast in. Soulful Saunas, stories of self-mastery.